So, Sir Ray, maybe perhaps the best thing to do is to introduce yourself. If you could introduce yourself, what you do, and your work in the creative economy in Baguio.
Hi, I'm Raimundo Rovillos. You can call me Ray. I'm um, I'm a full professor of history at the University of the Philippines, Baguio. I was former Chancellor of UP Baguio from 2012 to 2021. No? I just ended my term, 9-year term for in April 13, 2021. I'm also now the co-chairman with Mayor Benjamin Magalong of the Creative Baguio City Council, or CBCC. I was also one of the authors, no, or lead authors of the application for Baguio to become the first creative city under UNESCO, Creative Cities Network.
Brilliant. So, Sir Ray, maybe you can give us a short background on Baguio as a creative city. Also, of course, its proximity to Manila. Like, if you can tell us a little bit about, for the participants who have, no idea of what Baguio is, how would you define it to them, and how could you explain the creative economy within Baguio as well?
Okay, I don't have exact figures now, but Baguio is located in the Montañosa region, in the Cordillera Administrative Region. It is considered to be the summer capital of the Philippines, as you know it. And it is a melting pot, so they say, or I would say a place of multi-ethnic population in Baguio City. You have various ethnic groups coming from all over the Cordillera region. You also have various groups from other parts of the country as well as other parts of the world who chose to live here and retire here in the city of Baguio. Its indigenous population are called the Ibaloys, no, but since we became a chartered city under the American administration or regime, a lot of people coming from the region and the rest of the country started to settle here, making it a multi-ethnic place and a dynamic one. Because of these characteristics of the people here in Baguio, we find various crafts, no, that were brought here by the migrating population, like the crafters from Hongduan in Ifugao, the weavers from various parts of the Cordillera region, the tattooing, no, from Kalinga and other tattooing groups in the Cordillera region. The younger ones have settled here. And we also have the introduced metal craft, or specifically the silver craft that was introduced by the ICM missionaries, no, here in Baguio City.
Okay, great. So what do you think drives Baguio as to be a creative city in the present time? So obviously, historically, it really incorporates a lot of culture, craft, and techniques historically. But in the present day, what drives it? What are the factors that contribute to it being creative?
I think number one, that one factor that drives it as a creative city is really the presence, no, of various creative groups, no, in the city. Now you have various organizations, creative spaces, creative hubs, no, dominated by visual artists, no, but there are also sculpture artists doing sculpture. We have weavers, as mentioned earlier, wood carvers, weavers, tattoo artists, and silver crafters or silversmiths and metalsmiths. And you also have, this is also a university town, making it a space for various performing groups, no, that are university based. and artists that are university based. That's one factor. The people who live here, especially also artists who decided to make Baguio their permanent home because of its conducive environment. People like Ben Cabrera, you know, and his colleagues at that time. Some of them had passed on, like Santiago Bose, no, and so you have a creative community being formed through time, both coming from here, indigenous peoples living here, as well as migrants from other parts of the country and the world, no, coming here and making this their home. So that's one factor, the creative communities in Baguio City, the universities that are here in Baguio City, and I guess also the place itself, no, as I said earlier, which is conducive to creativity. That's why it attracted creative people in the first place. And of course, we cannot also discount the role of tourism. No, tourism in Baguio City that had attracted tourists and consumers of creative products or creative outputs in the city of Baguio.
So that was always there, right? I mean, when did it really start? Was there a starting point where there was an influx of artists that moved there, or it was already always within the city, that creativity?
I guess it has always been there because the indigenous culture or cultures, no, that you find here in the Cordillera region already offered um, creative outputs, no, or creativity um, as a product of tradition, no, or traditional crafts, for example, folk arts, no. We've always had it, no, but the more contemporary expressions of culture and arts became more pronounced, I believe, when we started to become a university town after the Second World War. And before, in the 80s, I think, no, I believe in the 80s, when you had a group of artists, as I said, the likes of Ben Cabrera, Santiago Bose, Myra Beltran, for a while, I think, settled here in Baguio City. I think she even became my student, I think, at UP Baguio, si Myra Beltran. And their group, no, there's a whole batch, no, of creatives and artists from Manila who decided to stay here in the city. So I consider that also a nodal point, no, in the history of the creativity of in the city of Baguio, the migrants coming from all over the country.
And are there any advantages or disadvantages of being in Baguio versus Manila?
Advantages. I think the main advantage would really be the weather. It's especially the pristine place that it was at that, especially at that time when they started to settle here. And they tell me that they decided to stay here precisely because it was very conducive for creativity. The cool weather, the nice environment, the green environment, especially at that time. You also had intellectuals in the universities, artists, anthropologists, no, who they interacted with and became a source of their inspiration in their creativity. You also had we also offered spaces for their exhibitions. So we had galleries in the universities, we have museums. So it was pretty laid back then, at that time at least. And you had cafes, you had, all these creative, these spaces where watering holes, for artists where they can get together and, just touch base and share ideas and share their work.
Yeah, brilliant. And any disadvantages or challenges of being in Baguio versus being in
I
Manila?
guess, well, the artists tell me that it's accessibility uh, to materials, no, supplies, no, for their creative work, and they felt this most, especially during the pandemic, when we had no access to Manila, we were under quarantine, and so they had no access to materials to be able to continue their creative work, no, especially our visual artists and also the crafters who relied on some materials and even equipments coming from outside Baguio. I think that's the only disadvantage of being not in the center of Manila,
Yeah. But
the
in terms,
center or the source of materials,
yeah, in terms of
supplies.
being a second city, so we call this panel the second cities. How do you feel about Baguio being called the second city? And perhaps did this second city factor limit your availability in terms of support from government, from private sector, etc.? Is there a difference of between that and like for example what someone would get in Manila?
Well, definitely as I said, access to resources and services, especially including access to services from the national government agencies. No, for example, for the longest time, we didn't have a local counterpart of the National Commission for Culture and Arts. No, it was only recently that we created a
Mm. Oh no. Oh no. No, oh no. Oh no. I think nag-lag.
um, also how do you call this? Um, access to other spaces for expression or display, no, of our creative outputs, no, because most of um, the patrons, no, or the consumers, no, of creative outputs are really in Manila, no. I mean, the buyers, the collectors are based in Manila, and we didn't have that opportunity or that proximity, no, to these buyers or to this audience, and so gradually we had to create our own audience, no, including consumers here in Baguio City, and gradually we've been able to do that, but still we have to organize big fairs and festivals just to get our buyers, our consumers, and our art mga enthusiasts and patrons to visit Baguio during big festivals. Otherwise, in our ordinary lives, so we don't have that. No, yeah, that's I think the only the disadvantage, being what you call a second city. No, we are not really like. We don't have the same diversity, no, diversity of creative forms and disciplines like you have in Manila. Baguio still has to develop the other creative disciplines or forms, no. They are not yet as mature as the ones in Manila.
Um, I think let's go to the work that you did, no, for UNESCO Creative City to become a creative city. Can you tell us a little bit about the designation and how you got there and your experiences um, in bringing it towards becoming a creative city?
Actually, it was very rapid, no, how things transpired. Um, there was this Southeast Asian Conference on Creative Cities that was organized at the Bonifacio Global City.
Mhm.
That was organized by the Creative Economy um, Council of the Philippines together with the DTI Design Center. And I was part of the group that was officially represented Baguio City together with the DOT CAR Regional Director Venus Tan, the budget officer of the city of Baguio, Attorney Leticia Clemente, the city planning officer at that time, Engineer Evelyn Kayat. We also had Aris Go, architect Aris Go, who's an architect, no, who designed most of our buildings at UP Baguio when I was chancellor then. So we were a group, no. So we were inspired, no, by the stories of creative cities in Southeast Asia, like Bandung, especially because we shared a lot of commonalities with Bandung being a city on top of a hill as well, which is also congested and also experience rapid urbanization problems like pollution, garbage problem, and overpopulation. And so much of the discussion there resonated with us. But we also had the opportunity to listen to other stories of other creative cities, no, in Southeast Asia. So that was the inspiration. And while during the breaks, we were having conversations with Mr. Paulo Mercado, who was the chairman of the CECP at that time, and Ms. Matute, no, of the Design Center of the Philippines, no, Rhea Matute, and they were encouraging us that, hey, Baguio can actually enlist, no, as a creative city. I think you have it. You have the elements. In fact, they were saying we can apply for design, but we were the ones who said, I don't think we're ready for that category. We would be more confident in applying as a creative city for crafts and folk arts, no, and so and we looked at the creative cities in the crafts and folk arts category that were already there ahead of us, and we thought, I think we can qualify. And so immediately after that conference, we convened the same group that attended that plus others. We invited Kidlat Tahimik, Ben Cabrera, Adelaida Lim, and so we formed sort of a working group, no, to work on the application. We had a series of meetings. So that was the BGC conference was I think May and or April, and then we worked on the application until June, and we had to meet a deadline. So unlike other creative cities and other cities applying now, which takes them a while, no longer time to be able to prepare the application. Ours was really quick, no. But what facilitated the whole process was it was already at the very beginning interagency, multi-stakeholder. So you have the academe there represented, because aside from UP Baguio, we also had the president of the University of the of Baguio, UB, no, at that time. So DTI was also on board, and so we were able to gather as many data and evidence as possible to put together in the document that we submitted to UNESCO. And so we submitted, and we didn't hear from them, no comments, no feedback whatsoever, and just we assume that everything is in order. So we just waited until end of November when it was announced, no, that we did it, we made it, no, we were chosen, no, by UNESCO.
So good. But what were what happened after? So what changed after you became a UNESCO creative city? Was it impactful in terms of the creative economy? How did it affect? What were the opportunities, and did it go beyond local opportunities or global opportunities? What happened?
Yes, a lot of changes. In fact, we submitted our monitoring report to UNESCO in November of 2021 because that was the deadline for submitting our accomplishment report after 4 years of having been designated in 2017. And that report documents our accomplishments over the past 4 years, and we had six key result areas, no, that we identified in our strategic planning. Um, I cannot remember all the six, but the major ones, I think the overall impact I would hazard to say, and I mean can confidently say, is that the designation has reinvigorated, no, or re-enchanted, no, the culture and arts and creativity environment or scene, no, in the city. Of course, as you said, it has always been there. We have always had creativity and culture and arts dynamism in the city, even before the declaration. That's why we got the recognition in the first place. But when we after that, activities, no, in the realm of culture and arts and creativity became more diverse. No, there were new festivals that were launched, including the Baguio Creative Festival and the Mangantaku or Food Festival, and recently the Montañosa Film Festival. So it really stimulated and inspired, no, the creatives in Baguio to really, I guess, to prove that we really deserve, no, we deserve the recognition. And so we worked harder, not to really reinvigorate, no, further our culture and creativity in the city of Baguio. So, and you can see that in, as I said, in new festivals, new creative hubs being developed, no, new museums. You have new creative organizations and NGOs, no, like the Baguio Arts and Crafts Council Incorporated, no, which is a very strong organization now, and of course, culminating in the official body that brings together public and private sectors in the creative city, creative areas, the Creative Baguio, the Baguio City Creative Council, or the CBCC, which is composed of 31, no, members from various disciplines in the visual arts, performing arts, digital arts, folk arts, no, literature. Yeah. So this is now the permanent body that will pursue the plans, no, of our city, consolidate activities, and reinforce whatever whatever initiatives are being conducted by various groups in the city. So that's it. I think one other impact would be we became more visible, no, in the international community, no, being part of the UCCN, or the UNESCO Creative Cities Network, allowed us the opportunity to participate in international conferences, fairs, and organize our own international conference, further learning from them the best practices all over the world, and improve ours, no, based on what we have seen around the world.
Okay, great. This was such a wonderful interview. Thank you so much. I'll stop recording na po.